Hello folks, how's it going? So welcome to my review of One Piece chapter 1032. So after 2 weeks of waiting, we finally got One Piece back on track. We find it interesting that Oda decides to focus on other aspects of what's going on Onigashima. However, he's been very meticulous and very careful about, whilst Oda's been showing what's been going on, the last 3 chapters, Oda's dedicated a portion of that chapter to a massive or major fight that's been going on in Onigashima right now. So in chapter 130, he focused on, it was Kid and Law teaming up and using Devil Fruit Awakening for the first time to get the upper hand on Big Mom. Last chapter 131, it was Sanji's time to shine, getting some awesome development, but also using Hell's Memories to kick back at Queen. And in this chapter, we got Zoro and King being focused on. Only fights that matter right now. And technically, the fight between Scratch Malibu and X-Ray kind of ended, which I'll get into. And again, I just want to point this out. Whether or not you think that Robin versus Black Maria started at chapter 1005 is kind of debatable. Even so, I don't think it really matters, considering a portion of that fight was focused in 2 chapters, pretty much. One, if you count technically 121, that's the only fight that wasn't really interrupted, because we saw other fights taking place and it cut back and forth. And we got other aspects that's going on Onigashima being shown to us. We got the whole thing with, we got Zoro and King going on. We got Scratch Malibu and X-Drake and their dilemma, now with Yamato in the middle. Speaking of Yamato's on the cover page with a couple of black cats making a delivery, and I'm assuming there's a food or supplies that Yamato's delivering. It kind of looks like, obviously it's in Wano, because obviously the old woman that we see, the kimono in the distance, and also the fact that it just looks like Amikasa village, the village that Tama's from, just because of the hilltop and the straw houses. Because it could also be foreshadowing, even though this is a cover request, because obviously Yamato being the daughter of, or son of Kaido, however you want to go about that, is related to Kaido. Obviously Kaido and Orochi are technically responsible for ruining Amikasa village along most of Wano. So it would make sense that Yamato would actually help out by the end. But I also said this in the anime when we got to this point in Act 1, when we found out that it was X-Drake, the one that burned down Amikasa village. And I said back then it kind of makes sense to earn up for that, because we know kind of the person that X-Drake really is deep down. He was just undercover working for Kaido, technically working for Sword under that influence, and burnt down Amikasa village and a lot of people. It makes sense if X-Drake would be the one to actually help out and deliver food and supplies to Amikasa village along with the rest of Wano. So we start off the chapter with Izo and Marco, and it's interesting because we haven't seen Izo for a while. So it looks like they saw one of the numbers, because Izo makes a point about a giant yokai. They also dart past Big Mom, so I don't know if Big Mom's aware that they flew past or not. Big Mom's so focused on Kid and Law after what we saw with them using the Devil Fruit Awakening. Then we cut to, obviously, Scratch Malibu, X-Drake and Yamato. Apu trying to win over Yamato. Yamato's like, I don't have time for this. X-Drake just give it up. And then you also have Fuga, one of the numbers that's with them. And Yamato immediately recognizes Fuga, so they've connected in the past. So that's kind of interesting. Makes sense. Then you have Brook and Robin falling down from the previous floor, and they land on Fuga as a cushion. So that's kind of funny. Robin makes the distinction that's hair, not a cushion. And then you got Cypher Pole agents coming down for them. I do like this moment because Robin's like, okay, we're going to have to fight them, it looks like. Which is kind of what I said in the previous chapter, in the previous review, when Robin was being pursued, and Robin was aware of this. I said it'd be kind of cool if she stood her ground and actually just tried to put up a fight. What else is going on? You got the Kanzanbo, the ghost that Kanjuro spawned after he quote unquote gave up his life, make its way to the weapons so it can blow up Onigashima immediately. This catches the Cypher Pole agents, and then it creates a wall of fire, giving Robin, Brook a brief window of opportunity to gain some distance. Also, this is coming down towards X-Drake and Apu and Yamato, who notices this. I do find it interesting. You got 2 different dynamics going on here. You got the whole, obviously, Apu, X-Drake, and Yamato dynamic where Yamato's being pursued by both. While this is going on, you got Robin and Brooke who come down and completely missed Yamato because Yamato's in a rush, and you notice that Yamato is like communicating with Fuga to like help Yamato out with something, probably to give Yamato a shortcut to the armory room. Oda's being very meticulous of what he's showing. The most interesting part is like while you see the wall of fire, Robin and Brooke trying to make an escape. Then it cuts to like Apu approaching one of the Cyberport agents, the Celestial Dragon lapdogs, spotted in Kairo's castle. Maybe I should reveal this to Morgan's news, and that was a big mistake. He's like, you should have kept your mouth shut. Boom, punches Apu right in the face. And as we kind of could have predicted, and then got revealed by Apu, he doesn't have haki, so he couldn't use that on his face to protect the blow. But they have an interesting confrontation with X-Drake, and they mention how he's part of the Marines, and I'm wondering, and X-Drake is like, what the hell are you doing here? I think I mentioned this in the previous chapter. Does X-Drake know that the Cypher Pole are here? Now he does. Ties up that loose end. But then Scratchman Apu actually fires back with Scratch Boom and attacks the Cyberport agent, which is pretty cool. Especially when you consider all the damage that Scratchman Apu, yeah, he's a traitor, but he's taking hits from like Zoro, Kid, X-Drake, and he still manages to launch off an attack without haki, by the way. Put a hold to their fight and actually attack, both of them attack the Cypherport agents. I can't see this going well, as cool as it is to see them actually team up now, at least to fight a common enemy. And this was kind of foreshadowed when Apu kind of like said, hey, X-Drake, maybe we should team up and take the spoils for ourselves, because whoever's going to win this is going to be easy pickings anyway. So that's kind of interesting. Although, in order to establish Cypher Pole as a threat, I don't see them losing, just because, number one, Scratchman Apu and X-Drake are kind of weakened right now against arguably two fresh Cypher Pole agents, especially with Robin Hyde putting them up in the previous chapter. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them to lose, although it would be kind of interesting if they did. Well, what that does in the power scaling especially. And I think it's obvious now, if it wasn't before, it's more than obvious now that Oda is... I said this multiple times, but Oda's telegraphing the Cypherport agents pursuing Robin way too much. Well, first off, the fact that Onigashima, which is literally about to go off like a firework display, if they don't get off there soon, and especially if the Kanzanbo makes its way to the armory in the next chapter, they're pretty much done, along with everybody else. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah, so I don't see this going well for Scratchman Apu and X-Drake. It would be interesting, but then again, I also made a play that maybe Who's Who could step in and actually deal with it. So we go to the main event of the chapter, and that's outside of the skull. We see Zoro and King, who's flying around, and immediately this is a problem for Zoro. Well, first off, King has adjusted his neck and his head so he can use it as a weapon against Zoro. The facial expressions, the way it was being presented to, it did look kind of goofy and silly at the first, but you can see what he's doing. It did remind me of the Kaku's Zoro fight when Kaku went into defense mode, and that was a funny gag. But this wasn't, I don't think it was nearly as comedic, but it just had that same feel at first. But then Zoro couldn't fend off the attack, gets sent crashing down, and then King makes the distinction, oh, that's how they hunted their prey just in prehistoric times. So I do like we're getting that kind of lore. And he also mentions it's kind of like a beam. In a way, I guess the impact's kind of like a beam. Then Zoro tries to use Excalibur Phoenix. King easily avoids that. And this is why it's a problem for King being in the air for Zoro, is because if I can't reach him, I'm just wasting my energy. We know Zoro has a problem with opponents that are in the air. We've seen this before. So King comes darting down, and then Zoro tries to use the Great Dragon Twister again, which is kind of cool considering this was the first major attack we saw from Zoro in Wano. He also used it against Kaido as well. King here was actually pretty interesting. He's had to block it with his wings, so King hasn't taken any damage. There's no blood on him at all. In fact, if you notice, the crack on King's mask hasn't widened at all. That crack has been the same since the last we saw it, which kind of makes me think if it's like the same situation we saw with Sanji. In chapter 130, we saw them clash. We saw the Calamities clash with the Monster Trio, and I mentioned during that we saw Sanji also clashing with Queen, considering the fact that we saw previously Sanji was trying to gain some distance and find out what the hell was going on with his body. And I said in the last review, maybe that was kind of like a time jump. What we saw with Sanji making his way back happened before that panel in chapter 130. It could be the same thing here with Zoro. Before Sanji contacted Zoro in the previous chapter with Dandamushi. It kind of looks that way, but especially when we saw Zoro blocking King with his sword, King finally using his sword. And we saw that not only in the previous chapter when he was being contacted too by Sanji, but also we saw that panel in chapter 130. In any case, Zoro can't fend them off, and he has to get sent hurling down, and he's actually coughing up blood, so Zoro's being put through his paces with King, which is good because it's exactly what we wanted to see. Even though you can make the argument that Zoro's kind of nerfed with this fight, if that was bad enough, Emma starts reacting. Zoro's hockey's being stolen, so that's a problem. Because if Zoro doesn't have the strength to resist it, Zoro's going to be even weaker. So Zoro now has 3 battles to overcome. He has Emma to get under control, and 2, the stamina factor because of the injection shot. We don't know how long that it will take until that wears off. And the 3rd and final problem is King's aerial, and Zoro has a huge problem landing an attack with someone that flies around in the air, which has been well documented in the series. So I know it's kind of unrealistic, but it would be kind of cool if Sanji actually helps out using Courier shoots, kind of like in Thriller Bark, to actually launch Zoro into the air. Because unless Zoro can actually dart himself in the air, he's going to have to find a way to immobilize King himself. Maybe he can cut his wings off or something, and maybe make it a ground battle. Because otherwise, Zoro's going to have to find a way to dart into the air, and maybe that's how the attack's going to go. It'd be kind of cool if Zoro does something new. I said that in the last review, it could be possible. Yeah, Zoro's got 3 battles to overcome, plus Zoro does make the distinction, if he figures out what King's race and his identity is, it might be enough to figure out how to land an attack, which I don't know, because if that's the case, does that mean Zoro would know what the Lunarian race is at? Because that would be kind of interesting if Zoro knows about that. To Orochi in the repository, and he's being lured by a guitar being played, and we also find out that it's Komurasaki, aka Hiyori. I think the theories of the silhouette that healed the scabbards initially after they got wrecked by Kaido, the fact that it was either Toko back from the dead, whether it was Enel, it was Yamato, those theories could be put to rest. Now it's obvious that it's Hiyori. I've been saying this for the longest time ever, that Hiyori was still here, and wouldn't you know, she's here to confront Orochi. Now whatever Hiyori's going to do is going to be very interesting, because Orochi's being lured, unless he's a very good actor, which he is, but at this point he's he's beyond life or death at this point. He's like, oh, this is heaven, that don't wake me up, because this is all I want. Komurasaki, aka Hiyori, is playing on Orochi's feelings, so this could be way how Komurasaki gets revenge and actually kills Orochi herself, which I've been saying maybe that I also kind of wanted to see this turn into a fight. Plus, just to cap off, the whole thing with Cypher Pole being on water, I'm going to keep harping on about this because it's obviously outside the Yonko right now, so we don't know what's going to happen. But there's still a chance that Robin can get captured. But the more I see it, I don't think it's going to be these 2 agents, just because, like I said, Oda's been telegraphing that way too much. Not be some diversions. They were given 2. Last chapter, they got some fodder in the way. This chapter, we got 2 of the worst generation, Scratchman and Pooh and X Drake, standing in the way. I still think who could get in the way. That doesn't mean Robin won't get captured, but a counter argument to that is what happens with the Rob Poneglyph, because Robin still hasn't seen that. A lot of theories that the Poneglyph that Law saw in Kaido's basement was a real Poneglyph, and the Rob Poneglyph is what's being kept at Orochi's castle. If that's the case, then Robin need to see that by the end of the arc and relay that information onto Luffy. So Robin would still have to be here. So that's a contradiction. So even if Momonosuke ends up reading that Poneglyph, if Robin gets captured, I don't see Luffy waiting around for that information. Do you? So no, there's still a chance that Robin could get captured, but that could be at the very end of Wano. I'm under the assumption there's more Cypherport agents on those warships. If nothing else, there could be an admiral, and I'm leaning towards Green Bull at this point because anything's possible with Oda. So yeah, I won't be surprised if Rob Lucci is on one of those warships because they did seem very adamant at capturing Nico Robin. So maybe it's yeah. I don't think those agents could be the ones to do it unless this turns into a huge chase until the end of Wano. I thought it was a great chapter. It's going to be interesting to see how Zoro overcomes this battle. That's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like the review if you did it. Thumbs up. I appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel for more One Piece. Catch you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.